Just after midnight on Thanksgiving Eve 2024, 5 gunshots echoed through a luxury Miami condo. Sabrina Krasnicki, a 27-year-old former model, shot her husband Pajtim 5 times in the chest, then turned the gun on herself. Was it love betrayed, a moment of despair, or something we'll never fully understand? What drove Sabrina to this unthinkable act? Stay with me for the heartbreaking details of this true crime story. Hit that like button and subscribe to uncover the truth behind this tragedy. Welcome to the story of Sabrina and Pajtim Krasnicki, a couple whose picture-perfect life in a $650,000 oceanfront condo in Hallandale Beach, Florida, hit a heartbreaking tragedy. On November 27, 2024, just before Thanksgiving, their story ended in a devastating murder-suicide that left Miami reeling and sent shockwaves through the Albanian community worldwide. This wasn't just another headline. It was a loss that shattered a family and raised haunting questions about love, betrayal, and the weight of a flawless image. What drove Sabrina Krasnicki to shoot her husband 5 times and then take her own life? Over the next few minutes, we'll walk through their lives, from their New York roots to their glamorous Florida days, piecing together the events that led to that fateful night. We'll examine the crime itself, the motives behind it, and the questions that still linger, all based on verified reports from sources like NBC 6 South Florida and Miami Herald. This case made headlines from Florida to Kosovo, where the couple's Albanian heritage struck a deep chord. Before we begin, a quick note. This video is grounded in facts and respects the families involved. Viewer discretion is advised, as we'll discuss sensitive topics like infidelity and loss. I want you to feel part of this journey, so comment below. Have you heard about the Krasniqi case before? What drew you to this story? As we start, picture this. A 45th floor balcony overlooking the Atlantic, a couple who seemed to have it all, in a single moment that changed everything. What drove Sabrina to that moment? Let's find out together. To understand the tragedy that unfolded on November 27, 2024, we need to know who Sabrina and Pajtim Krasnicki were. Not just as names in a headline, but as people with dreams, struggles, and a shared life that ended in heartbreak. What drove Sabrina to take Pajtim's life and her own? Let's start by stepping into their world, from the streets of New York to a luxury condo in Florida, and see what shaped this couple before that fatal night. First, let's talk about Sabrina Krasnicki. Born Sabrina Zaferovic, she was a 27-year-old of Kosovar Albanian descent, raised in Astoria, Queens, a vibrant neighborhood known for its tight-knit immigrant communities. Sabrina was a former model, someone who turned heads with her striking looks and ambition. In 2021, she appeared in an Inside Edition segment about catcalling in Times Square, where she spoke out about the darker side of her beauty. She said, "It's kind of disturbing. I don't feel safe." That moment on national TV showed her confidence, but also a glimpse of vulnerability. Sabrina had a backstage profile, filled with professional headshots and bikini photos, pitching herself for modeling and acting gigs. On Instagram, under the handle @Oxardio, she shared glimpses of a glamorous life. Designer clothes, exotic trips, the kind of polished image that drew thousands of followers. But by 2022, after moving to Florida with Pajtim, reports say she stepped away from modeling to become a housewife. Why the shift? Was it a choice, or was something weighing on her? Family members later mentioned red flags in her behavior, hints of trouble they couldn't quite pin down. What drove Sabrina to this point? Was it the pressure of maintaining that perfect image, or something deeper in her personal life? We'll come back to that. Now let's turn to Pajtim Krasnicki, a 34-year-old day trader born in the Bronx, the only U.S.-born child in a large Albanian family from Pajtim, Kosovo. Pajtim was the kind of person who left a mark on everyone he met. His sister Albana Krasnicki Munret called him mentally tough, and for good reason. In 2018, Pajtim survived a horrific motorcycle accident that nearly cost him his leg. Doctors pushed for amputation, but he refused, enduring 16 surgeries and even declining pain medication to avoid addiction. That's the kind of strength he carried. A man who faced pain head-on and came out stronger. His family adored him. His sister Ardiana said, "He made time for everyone, always showing up for nieces, nephews, and family gatherings. with a smile that lit up the room. As a day trader, Pajtim worked in the fast-paced world of stocks, building a life that allowed him and Sabrina to move into a luxury condo in Florida. To his loved ones, he was a rock, a devoted family man who seemed to have it all. But could that strength have hidden struggles we didn't see? What drove Sabrina to end the life of a man so loved? Sabrina and Pajtim's paths crossed in New York, where their shared Kosovar Albanian heritage likely brought them together. They were part of a proud community, one that values family and tradition, with ties stretching from the U.S. to Kosovo, where their story would later make headlines. In 2022, they left the hustle of New York for Hallandale Beach, Florida, settling into a condo at Beach Club 2, a sleek tower overlooking the Atlantic, where units range from $650,000 to nearly $6 million. To outsiders, their life looked like a dream. Ocean views, a fresh start, a couple building a future. But neighbors told Local 10 News a different story. In the weeks before the tragedy, they heard frequent arguments echoing from the Krasniqi's 45th floor apartment. One neighbor, though, saw a different side, describing them as a happy couple at the pool or gym, laughing and carefree. So which was it? A love story unraveling or a facade hiding cracks? What drove Sabrina to a point where words turned to violence? This contrast between the glittering life they showed the world and the private struggles we're only beginning to uncover sets the stage for what happened next. Their Albanian heritage connected them to a community that mourned deeply when this story broke, from Miami to Kosovo. But something was stirring in that condo, something that would lead to a night no one could have foreseen. What drove Sabrina to pull the trigger? To answer that, we need to look closer at the weeks leading up to November 27, 2024. Before we move on, I want to hear from you. What do you think their life was like behind closed doors? Were they a couple caught in a storm, or was something else at play? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep exploring this together, because the next piece of this story takes us closer to that tragic night. Now that we know who Sabrina and Pajtim Krasnicki were, we need to ask, what went wrong? Behind the polished image of their oceanfront condo and their shared dreams, something was unraveling. The question remains, what drove Sabrina Krasnicki to kill her husband and herself? In the weeks leading up to November 27, 2024, the cracks in their marriage began to show, and those closest to them started to notice signs that, in hindsight, told a story of heartbreak waiting to happen. Let's piece together the moments that led to that tragic night, starting with the strains that pulled their relationship apart. First, let's look at what was happening inside their marriage. Pajtim's brother, Arban, known as Benny, spoke to the New York Post after the tragedy, and his words were heavy with regret. He said, "We saw plenty of signs and now everything makes sense." What were those signs? The family didn't share specifics publicly, but Benny's statement suggests they saw trouble in Sabrina's behavior. Red flags that raised concern, but didn't prepare them for what was coming. The biggest clue came from what happened next. Sabrina confessed to Pajtim that she had been unfaithful. That confession, according to Benny, hit her hard. He told the Post she came to a point of guilt or something that she just could not take. Pajtim, heartbroken by the betrayal, was considering divorce, a step that seemed to terrify Sabrina. Why was divorce such a heavy weight for her? Was it the thought of losing Pajtim, the life they'd built, or something deeper? What drove Sabrina to a place where guilt turned deadly? Neighbors at Beach Club 2 Hallandale added another layer to this story. In the weeks before the shooting, they told the New York Post they heard what they called vicious fights coming from the couple's 45th floor condo. These weren't quiet disagreements. They were loud, heated arguments spilling onto the balcony and echoing through the building. One neighbor described the shouting as intense, happening both inside their apartment and out in the open air, high above Hallandale Beach. Yet not everyone saw the same picture. Another neighbor speaking to Local 10 News said they thought Sabrina and Pajtim seemed happy, even great when they saw them at the pool or gym. So what was the truth? Were these fights a sign of a marriage breaking apart, or just moments of tension in an otherwise loving relationship? What drove Sabrina to cross a line no one saw coming? These conflicting stories make us wonder what was really happening behind those condo walls. Now let's step back and consider the bigger picture. because Sabrina and Pajtim weren't just any couple. They were part of a tight-knit Kosovar Albanian community with roots in Pajtim, Kosovo, and ties to New York and Florida. For Sabrina, a former model and influencer known as @Oxardio on Instagram, maintaining a perfect image wasn't just personal, it was public. She'd built a following showcasing a glamorous life, designer outfits, exotic trips, a story of success. But when she moved to Florida in 2022 and stepped away from modeling to become a housewife, that image might have felt harder to uphold. The pressure to appear flawless, especially in a high-profile Albanian community where family and reputation matter deeply, could have weighed heavily. In Kosovar, Albanian culture, marriage is often seen as a sacred bond, tied to family honor and tradition. Divorce, for some, carries a stigma, a public admission of failure that can ripple through families and communities. Could this cultural weight have amplified Sabrina's fear of losing Pajtim? Was she afraid of not just losing her husband, but her place in the world she'd built? What drove Sabrina to see violence as her only way out? As we dig deeper, we have to ask about the warning signs that might have been missed. There are no public reports of domestic violence in their marriage, no police records of calls to their condo before that night. But the absence of records doesn't mean there weren't private struggles. Sabrina's shift from a high-flying modeling career to a quieter life as a housewife could have brought its own challenges. Did she feel trapped, unfulfilled, or lost without the spotlight? And what about Pajtim? His family described him as a rock, a man who faced a devastating 2018 motorcycle accident with incredible strength, refusing amputation and enduring 16 surgeries. That resilience made him a hero to his family. But could it have created pressure in their marriage? Was Pajtim's strength a source of support for Sabrina? Or did it make her feel like she couldn't measure up? We don't have all the answers, but these questions pull us closer to understanding what drove Sabrina to that final, irreversible moment. What do you think? Have you ever noticed red flags in a relationship that seemed small at the time, but grew into something bigger? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. As we leave this chapter, one thing is clear. The tensions in Sabrina and Pajtim's marriage were building, fueled by infidelity, fear, and fights that echoed through their luxury condo. What drove Sabrina to pull the trigger? The answer lies in what happened next, on a night that would change everything forever. We've seen the cracks forming in Sabrina and Pajtim Krasnicki's marriage. Infidelity, heated arguments, and a fear of divorce that weighed heavily on Sabrina. But nothing could prepare us for what happened next. On the night of November 27, 2024, just before Thanksgiving, the 45th floor of Beach Club 2 in Hallandale Beach, Florida, became the scene of a tragedy that would leave a family broken and a community in shock. What drove Sabrina Krasnicki to kill her husband and herself? To answer that, we need to walk through the chilling details of that night, moment by moment, and hear from those who were there. Let's step onto that balcony and uncover what happened. It was around 12:30 a.m., the early hours of Thanksgiving Eve, when the silence of the luxury condo tower was shattered. A system called ShotSpotter, designed to detect gunfire, picked up 5 rapid gunshots coming from apartment 4508, where Sabrina and Pajtim lived. Then a pause, eerie and unexplained, followed by a 6th and final shot. When police arrived, they found a heartbreaking scene on the balcony. Pajtim Krasnicki, the 34-year-old day trader and beloved family man, lay face down in a pool of blood, shot 5 times in the chest. Beside him was Sabrina, the 27-year-old former model, on her back, a single gunshot wound marking her final act. Bullet holes had pierced the glass door behind them, and blood had dripped down to the balconies below, a grim sign of the violence that unfolded. Inside the apartment, news reports noted a heart-shaped box, roses, and a teddy bear. Items that suggested a romantic setting, maybe an attempt to mend things, now turned into a haunting reminder of loss. What happened in those moments before the shots? Was there a final argument, a plea, or just silence? What drove Sabrina to fire those 5 shots, pause, and then take her own life? Neighbors in the building gave us glimpses into that night, though their stories don't fully align. Max Braidlin, a resident at Beach Club 2, spoke to the New York Post about what he heard. "It was scary," he said. "There were screams, and then the police cars came." Those screams, likely from the balcony where the couple was found, painted a picture of chaos and fear. But another neighbor speaking to Local 10 News offered a different perspective. They said Sabrina and Pajtim seemed great when they saw them around the building, at the pool and the gym, looking like any happy couple. So what changed that night? Were the screams a sudden escalation, or had the tension been building for weeks, hidden behind smiles? That pause between the fifth and sixth shots keeps nagging at us. What was Sabrina thinking in that moment? What drove her to end it all? Your thoughts matter. Drop them in the comments. What do you think happened in that pause before the sixth shot? The police response was swift, but it couldn't undo the tragedy. Hallandale Beach police confirmed what the scene told them. Sabrina shot Pajtim 5 times in the chest before turning the gun on herself. It was a murder-suicide, clear and devastating. The investigation, they said, is still ongoing, but no official motive has been released. First Service Residential, the company managing Beach Club 2, called it an isolated incident in a statement to NBC6, assuring residents they were cooperating with authorities. But for those who knew Sabrina and Pajtim, this was far from isolated. It was personal. The heart-shaped box, the roses, the teddy bear, they raised more questions than answers. Was this a planned act, a desperate attempt to fix a broken marriage, or a moment of overwhelming emotion? What drove Sabrina to pull the trigger? Not once, but 6 times, ending with her own life. This night marks the heart of the Krasniqi tragedy, a moment where everything fell apart. But to understand why, we need to look beyond the gunshots to the emotions and choices that led here. What drove Sabrina to this irreversible act? The answer might lie in a betrayal that cut deeper than anyone knew. Stay with me as we explore the motives and the pain left behind. We've just walked through the chilling night of November 27, 2024, when 5 gunshots, a pause, and a 6th ended the lives of Sabrina and Pajtim Krasnicki on their 45th floor balcony in Hallandale Beach. The police confirmed it was a murder-suicide, but one question still burns. What drove Sabrina Krasnicki to kill her husband and herself? Was it a single moment of overwhelming emotion or a deeper wound that festered over time? In this chapter, we'll explore the reported motive behind this tragedy, the devastating grief left in its wake, and the ripple effects felt far beyond Florida. Let's start by looking at why Sabrina pulled the trigger. According to those closest to Pajtim, the answer lies in a betrayal that tore their marriage apart. Pajtim's brother, Arban, known as Benny, spoke to the New York Post after the tragedy, and his words painted a clear picture. He said, "My brother wanted a divorce, and she didn't take that lightly." Sabrina had confessed to being unfaithful, a revelation that shook Pajtim to his core. Benny explained that the guilt of her infidelity pushed Sabrina to a breaking point. In his words, she came to a point of guilt or something that she just could not take. This wasn't just a fleeting regret. Sabrina's fear of losing Pajtim through divorce seemed to consume her. Reports from Vox News Albania echoed this, mentioning adultery, as a possible cause, though the police haven't officially confirmed the motive. The weight of her actions, combined with the looming end of her marriage, seemed to drive Sabrina to a desperate act. But was guilt alone enough to lead to murder? What drove Sabrina to choose violence over walking away? Before we go further, we need to clear up some misinformation. A post on X claimed Pajtim was the one who cheated, but this doesn't hold up. Family statements and news reports from NBC6, Miami Herald, and The Post consistently point to Sabrina's infidelity, not Pajtim's. Spreading false stories only clouds the truth and adds pain to a grieving family. So let's stick to what we know. Sabrina's confession and her fear of divorce set the stage for that tragic night. Could there have been other factors, unspoken pressures, or struggles we don't yet know? What drove Sabrina to see no other way out? Now let's turn to the family left behind, because this tragedy didn't just end 2 lives, it broke a family apart. Pajtim's sister, Albania Krasnicki poured her heart out on Facebook, and her words are hard to hear. She wrote, Pajtimi's wife chose to take my brother's life. She betrayed him, his love, and his trust. She shattered my family. You can feel the raw pain in every word. A sister mourning a brother she described as mentally tough. A man who survived a near-fatal motorcycle accident only to be taken by the person closest to him. Benny, too, spoke of Pajtim's warmth, telling the Post, "He was full of love, taken away by a selfish act." Another sister, Ardiana, shared how Pajtim was the glue of their family, saying, "He brought us all together." His nieces and nephews adored him, his laughter filling family gatherings. But one fear haunted them all, their mother's heartbreak. Albana wrote, "I'm terrified my mother will never recover." Imagine losing a son so loved, so full of life, in such a sudden, violent way. What drove Sabrina to inflict this kind of pain? The impact of this tragedy stretched far beyond the Krasniqi family, reaching into the tight-knit Albanian community in the U.S. and across the ocean to Kosovo, where Pajtim and Sabrina's heritage tied them to a proud culture. Albanian media, like Vox News Albania, covered the story extensively, reflecting how deeply it resonated in Paja, Kosovo, where Pajtim's family originated. Neighbors in Hallandale Beach felt the loss too. Marina Dedivanovic, a fellow resident at Beach Club 2, told the New York Post that Pajtim was the sweetest, most gentle soul. To hear someone described with such warmth, only to know he was taken so brutally, it's a contrast that hits hard. The community from Florida to Kosovo mourned not just a life lost, but the unraveling of a story that seemed so promising. What drove Sabrina to destroy not just her own life, but the man so many cherished? This chapter leaves us with a clearer picture of why this happened, but it also deepens the tragedy. Sabrina's guilt and fear of divorce pushed her to a desperate act, but the pain she left behind is immeasurable. How would you cope with a loss like this? If you've ever faced grief or betrayal, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how this story resonates with you. As we move forward, we'll look at the questions that still linger and what this case tells us about love, loss, and the human heart. What drove Sabrina to this moment? The answers may lie in what we've yet to uncover. We've walked through the heartbreaking story of Sabrina and Pajtim Krasnicki, their lives, their struggles, the night of the crime, and the pain left behind. We know Sabrina's infidelity and fear of divorce played a role, but the question that keeps us hooked still lingers. What drove Sabrina Krasnicki to kill her husband and herself? Was it just guilt, or was there something deeper, something we haven't uncovered? In this chapter, we'll explore the mysteries that remain and place this tragedy in a larger context, looking at other cases, cultural pressures, and patterns that might shed light on what happened. Let's start with the questions that keep us searching for answers. First, let's think about Sabrina's actions. Her family said guilt over her affair, and the threat of divorce pushed her to a breaking point. But why did that guilt escalate to murder? Was there an undiagnosed mental health struggle at play? There are no public records of Sabrina seeking treatment for mental health issues, but that doesn't mean they didn't exist. Mental health challenges can stay hidden, especially when someone's public image, like Sabrina's as a former model and influencer, is built on appearing perfect. Could stress, shame, or an untreated condition have clouded her judgment that night? Another question haunts us. Could this tragedy have been prevented? Neighbors heard vicious arguments in the weeks before November 27, 2024, but no one reported them to the police. If someone had stepped in, could Pajtim still be alive? And what about the ongoing investigation by Hallandale Beach Police? They've said it's still active, with no official motive released. Could new evidence, like phone records, witness statements, or even Sabrina's social media, change the story we think we know? What drove Sabrina to that balcony, gun in hand? These unanswered questions keep us wondering. Now let's step back and put this case in perspective, because the Krasniqi tragedy isn't an isolated story. Murder-suicides, while rare, happen too often, and Florida has seen its share. Take a case from June 2024 in Houston, Texas. Not Florida, but a striking parallel. Andrea Yates, a mother battling severe postpartum depression and psychosis, drowned her 5 children in 2001, a case that shocked the nation. Like Sabrina, her actions were tied to mental health struggles, though we don't know if Sabrina faced similar issues. Closer to home, in May 2012, a Miami Gardens couple was found dead in a house fire, later ruled a murder-suicide by detectives, leaving their family searching for answers, much like Pajtim's loved ones. These cases remind us that betrayal, despair, or hidden pain can lead to unthinkable outcomes. In Florida, domestic violence is a broader issue casting a shadow over stories like this. According to data from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, there were about 104,000 domestic violence incidents reported in 2023, showing how common these tensions can be. If you're watching, I've created a chart showing the trend of domestic violence incidents in Florida over the past few years, and it's a sobering reminder of the stakes. What drove Sabrina to join these tragic statistics? Was it a moment of desperation or a pattern we're only starting to see? Beyond the numbers, we need to consider the cultural pressures that might have shaped Sabrina's choices. As Kosovar Albanians, Sabrina and Pajtim were part of a community with deep roots in family and honor, stretching from New York to Paja, Kosovo, where this case made headlines. In Albanian culture, marriage is often seen as a cornerstone, and divorce can carry a heavy stigma, especially for women. For Sabrina, who once thrived as an influencer under the Instagram handle at Oxerdio, the pressure to maintain a perfect public image was intense. Influencer culture demands a flawless facade, glamorous photos, curated posts, and a life that looks enviable. Stepping away from modeling to become a housewife in 2022 might have felt like losing part of that identity. Could the fear of divorce, combined with the weight of cultural expectations and her public persona, have pushed Sabrina to a place where she saw no way out? What drove her to choose such a final act? These questions and comparisons show us that the Krasniqi case is more than a single night. It's part of a larger tapestry of human struggle, cultural weight, and societal patterns. Do you think the police will uncover new details that could change how we see this story? Vote in our poll, yes or no, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. As we head to our final chapter, we'll reflect on what this tragedy means and how it touches on the universal truths we all face. What drove Sabrina to this moment? The answers may lie in the lessons we take away. We've reached the end of our journey through the tragic story of Sabrina and Pajtim Krasnicki, a couple whose lives ended in a heartbreaking murder-suicide on November 27, 2024. Over the past few minutes, we've explored who they were, the tensions that tore their marriage apart, the night that changed everything, and the pain left behind. The question we've been chasing, what drove Sabrina Krasnicki to kill her husband and herself, has brought us closer to understanding, but it's also reminded us how complex the human heart can be. Let's take a moment to recap this tragedy, reflect on what it means, and look ahead. This story began with a confession. Sabrina Krasnicki, a 27-year-old former model, admitted to infidelity, a betrayal that shook her husband Pajtim, a 34-year-old day trader loved by his family for his warmth and resilience. Faced with the possibility of divorce, Sabrina's guilt and fear seemed to overwhelm her, leading to that devastating night in their Hallandale Beach condo. 5 gunshots took Pajtim's life, followed by a 6th that ended Sabrina's. The family's grief was raw and profound. Pajtim's sister Albana wrote, "She shattered my family," while his brother Benny called it a selfish act that stole a man full of love. This wasn't just a headline in NBC6 or the Miami Herald. It was a loss that broke a family and sent ripples through the Albanian community from Florida to Kosovo. The heart-shaped box, roses, and teddy bear found in their apartment only deepened the tragedy, hinting at a love that couldn't hold them together. What drove Sabrina to this moment? We may never know the full answer, but the weight of her choices is clear. As we reflect, this case touches on truths we all recognize. Betrayal, guilt, and unspoken struggles can push people to places they never imagined. Sabrina's fear of losing her marriage, her identity, and her place in a community that valued honor and family may have felt like a trap with no escape. Pajtim's loss reminds us how quickly life can change, leaving those left behind to pick up the pieces. If you or someone you know is struggling with relationship challenges or emotional pain, please reach out. Resources like the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-79-923 are there to help, offering support when it's needed most. This story isn't just about loss, it's a call to notice the people around us, to listen, and to act before it's too late. What's your take on this tragedy? How do you make sense of a story like this? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading everyone, and your perspective means a lot. If new details emerge in the Krasniqi case, whether from the ongoing police investigation or other sources, I'll be here to cover them. Subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss any updates. If true crime stories like this grip you, check out my playlists on celebrity cases for more stories that challenge us to think and feel. Subscribe, like, and share this video to spread awareness about the Krasniqi tragedy and the lessons it holds. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Let's keep asking the hard questions together.